Back at it, Studio 110.live. It's I'm forgetting the day of the week almost. It's Thursday. It's a Thursday afternoon. It's been a busy day here. Been running around, being pulled in multiple different directions, but we've had great shows. Our social is definitely leading the pack right now. Follow us on our Instagram at Studio110.live. You'll see some very humorous, comical videos. I think my favorite one up there is Sir Mix-a-Lot. Coming out and telling me that he was upset that I asked him to do some mopping around the studio before he came into the big show. So shout out to Sir Mix-a-Lot on a 47-city U.S. national tour. Kicked off the radio show here in the studio with us back on the 15th. And man, we got a big show today. Got lots of big surprises coming up, I'm told, from our staff here at Studio 110.live. I got a big announcement I'm scheduled to apparently make tomorrow that you'll definitely want to be tuned in for right around the 3 o'clock hour. So today's show we got artists today. We got my buddy here, Dan from Tropical Tan, kicking off the show with me. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. I'm sure you had to change your schedule around to be here for this major radio show today.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. If you can come a little closer to the mic for me. So you're the pilot. You're the main face and brains and everything constructed in between for Tropical Tan.
My brother and my dad and I are the partners that own the company, and I'm the president. Yes.
There you are. Let's talk about Tropical Tan, because I think you and I met each other back in the day at my former station called Cube 93.
Absolutely.
I recall, I don't know if I did any appearances at any of the locations, but I do remember voicing some commercials.
Absolutely.
For Tropical Tan back in the day. And so when did you and the family kick this bad boy off?
Well, it started back in 1982. My dad started the first Tropical Tan in Shoreline, Washington.
Yep.
And I joined the company in 2003 and partnered with him. And my brother joined shortly after that. And the three of us are the power team. And we own the company together. We've built up to 60. We've got 16 stores now.
Wow.
And we're continuing to grow. It's a lot of fun.
That's what it's about. You started with one and you're up to 16. Well, what's the goal? I mean, what do you want to have? 30, 40, 50?
Well, hey, West Coast.
West Coast, up and down the whole West Coast.
There you go. That's the plan.
So I think a lot of people have the misconception of just kind of the whole health, ingredients about tanning, and I know you guys especially have put people to more ease and ultimately got them more relaxed, because I think a lot of people just with tanning, and when we talk about tanning, they're a little fearful of when people talk about the back end of what can happen to your skin and everything like that. Sure. So if you can kind of explain here to the listeners how there's really nothing to worry about, and it is a healthy approach, and it ultimately makes you look better.
Absolutely. Well, just to start off, tanning beds were designed by doctors back in the 70s, and to basically be a replacement for the sun, for people that can't get sunlight because maybe they're working indoors. Sure. Or they live in an area where there's not a lot of sun, like Alaska or Seattle.
Yep.
And it helps produce vitamin D. They can look good, feel good, and it's been around since the 70s.
Yep.
So yeah.
I remember for the Summer Jam, our big outdoor concert that we used to do every year out of the Gorge, 22,000 people. I don't remember what location it was, but I did I stood in this roundabout, I don't even know what you call it. It was a machine, but the girl, they did the spray tan. Where you stand there and they actually spray you from head to toe.
Absolutely.
And you're told, hey, don't take a shower for a couple hours, and let it absorb into the skin. And I saw the results. I mean, I personally, I've never looked so dark in my life. It did me well, especially from seeing myself on the jumbo screens on stage in front of 22,000 people. So
absolutely, everyone looks better with a tan. Absolutely.
I mean, how often are you going into your locations and yourself?
I tan about once a week. I like the UV beds the best, but I also spray tan as well. And I use the new red light therapy that we have. It's an anti-aging bed. It produces collagen and elastin in your skin and gets rid of wrinkles, which is pretty awesome. We launched that a couple of years ago.
Awesome. Let's talk about the different services that your stores offer. Just from kind of walking me through from introductory packages leading up.
Tropical Tan, like I said, it's been around since 1982. We have 16 locations ranging from downtown Seattle up to Everett. Yep. At each location, we offer a range of UV tanning beds. We have 5 levels, so they go from the basic beds up to the ultra beds. I like to think of it. I like cars, so I like to relate it to cars. You got the Hyundai level, and then you got the Ferrari, Ferrari level,
and then up to the Bentley.
Exactly, whatever you want. And
So what do you get for like the Hyundai versus leading up to the Bentley?
The Hyundai level, that's a basic bed. It's a lot like the beds that were back in the 80s. You know, it's a simple bed. There's no bells and whistles. The new ones have aromatherapy. The Bentley level has aromatherapy, surround sounds, air conditioners built into them. So it's like you get a really quick tan with a premium experience. Basically.
Wow, that's great. That's great.
The air conditioning and the aromatherapy is my favorite.
Yep. And then I know a lot of your locations, don't they offer like different, like a hair salon, different products that you can use to keep the tan absorbed and looking fresh and clean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we offer a full range of tanning lotions and skincare products, and we've diversified a lot. We carried a lot of body washes and like lip balms and sunscreens, full range of products there. We carry the best products out there, Devoted Creations and Supri, and the best stuff really.
What inspired you to for you and the family to kick this off? What was the what did you do prior to this?
Well, before I got into the tanning business, I was working as a stockbroker.
Okay.
And my dad, he opened the first salon back in 1982. He was in the Army, and he and one of his Army buddies wanted to get into the health and fitness business, and they looked around and they saw tanning as a good opportunity.
Sure.
So I just, after working in the investment business for a number of years, I wanted to work for myself, and I love working with my family. It's just really a blessing.
Yeah, it's great too, because
family.
Yeah, I know, because a lot of people can't do that. A lot of people, really struggle. Working with their families, and you constantly have issues and things that you're trying to conquer.
We have issues. We fight all the time, but we always work it out. At the end of the day, it's like
because you guys are family. I mean, you can't really get too mad at each other. I mean, you guys may disagree on a business principle or whatever it is, but you guys turn it around. So
always.
What are some other kind of insights that we can be able to invite our listeners to come to Tropical Tan? Because I'm a very competitive guy. Like, what is Tropical Tan going to offer that some of these other guys literally aren't offering?
Well, one of the things that really sets us apart from the competition is that we are always using the best equipment possible. Like, we just upgraded all of our spray tan booths to the Versa Pro, which is the brand new heated spray tan booth that has 4 different levels. It has 4 different options. It's a great machine. It talks to you, voice guide. It actually has a screen on it that'll walk you through a video on how to stand and do it properly. And that's one thing that is really amazing. It's way better than the old Versa Spa unit, which is still a good unit, but it's just a massive upgrade from that. So we have that at almost all of our stores now. And
what's roughly the price range just for one of these things? And you got 16 stores.
It's about $30,000 for one machine.
Wow.
It's a very equipment-intensive business.
And you probably have a number of them in each one of your locations.
That's another thing that sets us apart from the competition is we have full-time maintenance staff, and I actually run the maintenance department. That's really my specialty, is helping to keep the beds running properly, because they all break and we fix them right away. So a person will come in, their machine, if there's an issue, we'll have it fixed the next day. So
and you're probably running from store to store to store all day, huh?
All day.
Wow. And give me kind of the proximity in terms of the location. I mean, obviously Seattle, but how far south and how far north?
They go. Queen Anne's our southernmost store, and the Everett store is in South Everett, right on Evergreen Way. On 50th and Evergreen Way.
That's great. And like I said, it's tough to even have one local business these days, and it just kind of shows. And I've had several other guests on the show that have kicked off their own dreams and personal businesses, and I think it's a learning lesson to everybody, because I think a lot of people when they're trying to kick off their own business, it's a struggle. They get concerned and they get stressed out. Will I be able to make it? And you're a true testament, honestly, to have 16 locations in one state and on the expansion. I mean, it shows that you can do it. It shows that you gotta get off the training wheels and before you can get on the big boy's bike. But it's a good principle all around. So if you're kind of on the maintenance side, what are the tasks and responsibilities of the other family members?
My dad has he's moving towards retirement right now. He just got back from a vacation, and he's got an awesome little pug called Tuffy. Tuffy's our mascot, and he goes around to the stores with his pug and takes care of business as well. But
Great.
we're all active. My brother, my dad, and I are all active. We just wear different hats. But small business owners, and we're busy all the time. We work in the business every day. That's one of the neat things too, is to go out to the salons. We're out there every day, and I run into customers, people that have been coming to us for 15 years, or and to see those familiar faces who really appreciate how we do business.
And it must be nice too to get those direct testimonials from your customers when they they ask you questions, or they have a concern, or they want to know about upcoming promotions or features and all that. It must be nice to chat with them.
Absolutely. Speaking of upcoming promotions, we're doing something on tax day on April 17th. We're doing a $10 tan on tax day.
I like it.
Everybody can save some money, and that's good for all levels of tanning at any tropical tan location.
And give me those details again for.
It's a $10 tan on tax day on the 17th of April at all tropical tan locations, and that's so they can get a Versa Pro spray tan, they can do an ultra level tan, or do a red light therapy session. There you go. Because
I recall every time I go and get my physical from my doctor, he always preaches the vitamin D, the vitamin D, the vitamin D, the vitamin D, and for people like us, this is not South Beach, Miami here. I mean, it's an overcast, cloudy day here at Studio 110.live's headquarters here in downtown Bellevue on the 33rd floor. But I can see. How important it is just on the health side of this conversation too. It's look, it's on the health side of the conversation, but then it's also on just the cosmetic beauty side of it too. I mean, everybody wants to look a little darker, right? A little bit darker of a complexion. when you go out for a weekend, or you go out during the week, whatever it is. I mean, it's a feel-good treatment.
It is, absolutely.
Let's talk about the hours of operation. It sounds like you guys you guys work around people's work schedules, unlike most places that just probably close at 6 or 7. So
we do. That's one of the neat things about Tropical Tan, is we really put the customers first. Customer service and convenience are the most important things for us, and taking care of the customer. So yeah, we have some locations that are open till midnight. And we do happy hour specials for students after 10 p.m. They can come in and get discounted services, and we're open 7 days a week, and we close for the major holidays.
Sure.
Sometimes we'll actually keep some stores open.
Okay.
Like for Easter, we had about half of our stores were open because employees wanted to work, and we're okay with that. So.
And they want to look good to go to church, or Easter dinner or Easter brunch. I mean, it's a good time to be around family, and you don't want a bunch of pale people walking around.
Absolutely not.
So it's but I like just kind of looking over your bullet points here. I like when a business kind of comes out with that guarantee, and you say, we guarantee results and stand behind all our products and services we sell. I'm not part of Tropical Tan, but I've got my buddy Dan from Tropical Tan in, so I don't want people to get misconstrued. We have a full-time customer service department to solve problems for customers, and if a customer wants to talk to one of the owners, we work in the business full-time, out of our salon. So it's like, how many businesses today, do you have the opportunity to have really a one-on-one connection with an owner? I mean, most of the time you're dealing with an employee, and they'll say, hey, we'll pass on your, you'll pass on your message, and half of the time you'll never hear back from an owner.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I was in one of the couple of salons yesterday, and again, I had some long-term customers come up. I gave one of them a hug. She works for a local business. She works for Macy's. She's great, and she's been with us for a while. And it's a great experience. I love it. I feel blessed every day.
And you're a former Marine, I see.
Yep, that's correct.
You were in the Marine Corps from '99 to 2005. You left as a sergeant. Talk about that experience.
That was one of the best things that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
where were you? Where were you based?
I worked mostly here in Washington, but went through boot camp down at Camp Pendleton, and but I traveled around around the country.
So is boot camp kind of how we see it on TV shows and in the movies? Is it that intense?
It's pretty intense. Yeah, it's pretty intense.
They're getting in your face screaming?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
It's a lot like that, yeah.
Did you ever have times that you wanted to just literally, just punch that drill sergeant in the face,
Yeah, most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
But I mean, it probably gave you a whole different look on life, and B, set you apart from other people just in terms of how you carry yourself and how you speak to people. And most people don't have that type of background or upbringing at all.
It was a great experience. One of the best of my life.
So if you're just tuning into the show right now, I got my guy Dan here from Tropical Tan. They got 16 locations around the Pacific Northwest. Their hours are very friendly and accessible. And you can see they're open on holidays like Easter because they want to ultimately help out their customers.
Absolutely.
And you got for all the people around tax day coming up here, you've got a special, and let's talk about that again.
Oh yeah, so on tax day on the 17th of April, we're doing $10 tans and red light therapy and spray tans at all Tropical Tan locations. Tropicaltan.net is the website. I didn't put that on there, but
that's okay.
Yeah, so we just want to make it convenient for our customers to come in and save some money and look better and feel better on tax day.
And you guys obviously started in '82, and you were one of the first tanning companies in the country. I mean, another business that originated here in the Pacific Northwest, like Nordstrom's and Microsoft and Amazon and Tropical Tan. I mean, you're up there with Boeing and all the big stars. Well, Dan, like I said earlier, I mean, we have a lot of listeners that are trying to be able to develop and pull together the means to be able to kick off a business. What would be your recommendations, whether it's the tanning business or if it's any sort of startup? What are your kind of your personal key core ingredients to be able to launch something like you have?
Well, I think first of all, a lot of it has to do with your employees and your partners, your vendors, and really looking at them. Your employees are your partners. You can only go as far as your employees allow you to go.
Sure.
And you have to put a lot of faith in them and enable them to help you grow. And you have to share the vision with them so that they can be a part of that growth and the prosperity and share with them financially as well. And then also with partners, all the vendors, the equipment manufacturers, the lotion, bulbs. I mean, I talked to my bulb guy the other day, and he's great guy, and we talk one-on-one on the phone. He's not just I don't just order my bulbs over a website, and not talk to the guy. I talk to the guy who makes them. So.
And out of all your locations, which one would you say is your favorite one to attend?
It's hard to say. I would have to say the Wallingford store is probably my favorite.
I like
right
Wallingford.
Now.
Wallingford is a really developing area.
Absolutely.
I mean, especially with the Wallingford Center there, and then you got the QFC there. You got 45th.
Yeah, it's just right by the UW, right off I-5. It's really convenient. It's open till midnight, so I think we have the one of the most convenient spots there in Seattle for people to go tan late, and it's a great location. I love Wallingford. I also love our Queen Anne location. That's a great neighborhood too.
Yep. And out of all your responsibilities and duties, like in terms of the maintenance side and then the customer service side and then the ownership side and the day-to-day operations, like, if you had to kind of choose one, what's your favorite part of your day-to-day?
Honestly, I love dealing with the employees, and I love dealing with the customers, the people. Really, that's what makes me the happiest, because over the years you just get relationships with all the customers and employees, and we laugh and smile together and work hard together, and it's great. I love it.
Where do you think the tanning business needs to evolve to? What do you think the next launching pad is for the reinvention process and the kind of the recirculation of the tanning business?
Well, it's changed so much since I've been in the business, and we're adding more products and services like the red light therapy, anti-aging product that I was telling you about. That's become huge. I think a lot of we're bringing in more spa products like the weight loss pods, the cocoon weight loss pods or rejuvenation pods.
And let's stop real quick. So let's talk about how do those ultimately work in terms of, because weight loss affects everybody. So
yeah, well, first of all, red lights has been great. I mean, that's something that we're all getting older. We're all getting more wrinkles, and so the red light therapy basically boosts collagen and elastin in your skin, and it was a technology that was developed by NASA back in the 70s, and it's become commercially available recently. And we have 2 machines in each one of our salons. It looks like a tanning bed, but it's not. It gives off a high-intensity red light, infrared and visible red light, that stimulates your skin cells to produce more of these fibers, which get rid of wrinkles. They kind of plump up your skin, make your skin look more supple and
more
soft.
tight. Yep.
Yeah, and it gets rid of wrinkles and fine lines, and it builds those protein fibers in your skin, which make you look healthier and younger. It also increases circulation, which helps your skin.
And do you see the results? How many times do you usually have to go to see an average result in terms of being happy, looking in the mirror afterwards?
On the red light therapy, I'd say it takes about a month. Unlike tanning, you get instant results, which is one of the benefits. That's why people love it. They go in, they walk in, 10 minutes later, they're a shade or two darker.
They don't even recognize themselves sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Or with the spray tan, it's like literally 1 minute, and you are dark within a minute. And with the red light therapy, it does take more. You have to go a few times a week, and 2-3 times a week, and probably for about a month to really see the results.
And have you seen like the true kind of before and after? Have you seen it?
Yeah, I have people all the time that come up to me and tell me how happy they are with it. Yeah,
wow, that's really cool.
And then the cocoon is something that we added. We have the Formastar fitness wraps. It uses infrared heat to basically it helps people with weight loss, and And the Cocoon does the same thing as well. It uses infrared light and infrared heat to basically help people lose weight and to rejuvenate their skin.
And what's kind of the time lapse on the weight loss application service?
Those ones also take a little bit more. You have to, unlike the tanning is the instant effect.
Sure.
The red light therapy and the Cocoon and the Formastar, they take probably, I'd say, a month of consistent use to see good results.
Okay. And just kind of going back to the original question in terms of where the tanning business needs to ultimately be able to shape into for kind of the next empire phase.
Mm-hmm.
What are your, I mean, I had no idea, honestly, in terms of that there was, construction within built for anti-aging and for weight loss. I mean, when I think of tanning, I think of, like we said, the typical standard go in and, get a tan. But now how it's evolved in terms of the anti-wrinkling and the ultimately, shutting down a couple pounds. So what do you feel like, just in your professional opinion, Dan, is as we evolve, what do you think the next step would be?
Well, we see a lot of improvement with the type of equipment that's out there. They're really dialing in, and we're really on the forefront of that. We buy the best equipment. We use all Ergoline beds. Ergoline is the leader in tanning technology. They're a German company and fantastic company. And we basically go to all the trade shows. We are in close contact with them about what the new products are, new beds, new equipment. And then we work with Sunless Inc. is the manufacturer of the VersaPro, and I met with their reps last week. They came out here to Seattle and we had lunch, and we're always on top of the best and newest technology.
That's great.
That's our business.
Let's talk about the happy hour specials, because when I think of happy hour, I usually think of going to a bar or going to a restaurant. I just went to the last week or the week before. I went to the Salmon House down there in Lake Union, the Ivor Salmon House, that nice restaurant, and
it's a great spot.
Great spot. I
love the deck out there. It's fun to pull a boat up on that.
It's great to pull your boat up in the summer. It has some world famous Ivor's fish and chips, and that
best happy hour.
Best happy hour. And I had like the salmon sandwich burger, or whatever it was, and it was like $10, and it was a big sandwich, and it's a like I was saying, it's a Seattle staple, but they really kind of revolve their business around the kind of the pretense of that happy hour connotation. And I'm interested to kind of hear about where happy hour comes into play for Tropical Tan in 16 locations. So really, no one really has an excuse in terms of that you're too tired or the boss pissed you off at work that day. I mean, decompress, and after 10 o'clock, you should be decompressing anyways. But you have no better excuse other than to go to Tropical Tan, right?
Absolutely, you can leave Ivors there in Wallingford and go up to our Wallingford store. We're still open after or before. Well, the happy hour, just the idea is that just like you said, we want to give an opportunity for people after work, they can come in. Most of the happy hours vary at different stores because of the way that the neighborhoods are broken up. And if it's like at our Wallingford store, it's after 10 p.m. Some of the stores, like in Bothell, I believe theirs starts at 7 p.m. So,
okay.
But yeah, it's just like after work, people can come in and they can save a few bucks if they want to, and yeah, it's a good way to save some money and come in and decompress after work.
There you go. And I got on the air with me right now on my show, Dan the Man, one of the partners here at Tropical Tan, 16 locations around the Pacific Northwest. If you're not following us on Instagram right now, like I say every day on my show on the air, what are you waiting for? Studio110.live. I'm sure Dan's following us, and I'm sure he'll be telling his staff at all his locations to follow us. And we got a great show here. Today's actually our 3-week anniversary.
Wow,
so you're on the top echelon in terms of our open gate top guest, Dan, and it's great to have you on. Maybe next time you come in, we can get Michael in and Daniel in. We make it a family occasion where we can all get everybody in.
I'll bring them for sure. Yeah.
That'd be good, and I think it'd also be fun to talk about like in the past. And no problem if you don't remember, but just like we can talk about maybe doing some fun appearances, maybe where we can do some live broadcasts with the show at one of the locations. And
I would definitely like to do that. We actually had Snooki out to our Queen Anne location a couple years back.
Yeah.
And we're talking about getting Pauly D out here because they love they're both tanners, and
yeah.
they have lotion. They actually have tanning lotion lines out.
There you go. Be good to get them into the studio, and we can promote that, and even some giveaways too. I think I've always been in the giveaway business. I mean, people always, whether it's concert tickets or passes for a percentage off or a free tan or whatever it is. It always translates to a good business strategy for the business and the connection of that ultimately that P1 customer. So I can definitely see the benefits. If it was up to you, Dan, what would be your next location that you would ultimately like to open up, here around the Pacific Northwest?
We keep that a pretty close secret, but we're looking just north. I'd say we're trying to expand north and also to the east a little bit. We're looking at possibly another location along I-5 heading north, and then there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
There's definitely. But
you ever thought about like Eastern Washington out there? For all the shows they do out there by the gorge. Just people want to get a last minute tan to look good for Dave Matthews or any of the big artists that frequent the gorge in George.
That's that most of the people live in the west side, and I live out here, so I don't like driving too much. But I think when we get to that level, when we get to that expansion where we have more locations, we're gonna have probably, my brother and I have talked about the growth, and my dad have talked about our growth plan, and we're gonna build probably another 5 to 10 locations close to Seattle, Everett, Seattle area, maybe start to expand over into the east side, and then once we hit that level of having 25 to 30 locations, then we'll look at doing more stuff outside of the greater Seattle area.
When are you planning on bringing the good old Pauly D and Snooki up here for some appearances?
Well, I just was talking with one of my reps who does his lotion line, the Pauly D tanning lotion line. Yep. I was talking with her about that recently, and we're going to get it on the calendar here soon. I'm trying to find some partners to help me out with that too and make that happen. So,
well, great. I'd like to. I'll let Erica, my wonderful show producer and assistant, know that we got to get the show out there to a tropical tan location to do a live broadcast, and I'd like to be able to give away some of these incentives and passes so sure. Everybody can benefit from it. So
absolutely. Well, I think that, like I said, the first thing is that tax day thing, the $10 tan on tax day at all tropical tan locations. And we're doing another one next month, which is pretty fun as well for Mother's Day.
Oh, let's talk about that.
We're doing a free tan, Mom's Tan Free at Tropical Tan.
Mom's Tan Free.
A free session.
I like it.
All you got to do is bring in a picture of your kid and show us that you got a kid, and you can tan for free at any Tropical Tan location on Mother's Day.
So don't bring in like your cousin or your sister or your next door neighbor's daughter or sister. Don't be cheap.
Yeah,
don't be cheap here around Tropical Tan. Bring in a legitimate photo. You should be happy as a parent anyways to bring in a photo of your own child.
We'll have some specials for people that don't have kids as well, but it's just we want to say thanks to moms because we really value the family, and we value moms.
There you go. And normally what is the price of one of those tans that these free moms are going to be able to get to save all that money?
$30 is it for a spray tan. For a Versa Pro spray tan, it's about $30. For an ultra session and our ultra highest level tanning bed, it's about $30. So
they're saving $30.
It's basically a $30 value.
That's great. That's great.
Or if they want to do like a red light therapy session, that's a little bit less, or one of the lower levels of tanning, but. Yeah, that's what they can do when they come in.
Do you see it being like like a popular shoe store in Seattle when a new like Air Jordan comes out and they ultimately like sleep in tents and they line up outside the door for sometimes days before the shoe comes out? Do you see that being the same type of response for all the moms to get free tans on that particular special day at Tropical Tan?
We do a few promos every year where we do free sessions, and there's usually a line before we open for
good.
that.
Yeah. Well, good. There should be. I mean, like there should be. Who in their right mind doesn't want to save $30 to be able to get free tan? I mean, that's what it's about. It's about it's already tough enough to be able to for a lot of people to make ends meet, and Dan and his family here are easing up the people's nerves and constraints ultimately. So
absolutely making people feel better, making them look better.
There you go. Any shout outs? I'm sure you've got probably quite a few, and the floor is yours to shout out anybody that you want to shout out from family to all your 16 locations. So.
I'd like to say thanks to Erica, first of all, for your assistant here for making this happen.
She's a wonderful producer.
Yeah,
yes,
she is, absolutely. And then I just want to thank all my employees. Basically, they all work really hard, and they do all the work to make it happen, and they grind it out for me, and I appreciate them. And also my brother and my dad, they both are really hard workers as well.
Everybody watching today, is the brother and dad, have they dropped priorities to be able to watch Studio 110.live and see their proud brother just excel on the radio here? So.
That's what I'm sure they are. So.
Good. Well, I definitely would like to get you back in, and like I said, I'd like to be able to do some future giveaways, and we can be able to continue to promote Tropical Tan, because I feel like there's always going to be promotions happening.
Yeah.
Please don't go anywhere. I want you to hang out here for a few minutes. I'm going to welcome my next in-studio guest here, my buddy Brendan. You can get a little closer to the mic here for me so everybody can hear you. Brendan and I, we met through a mutual friend, and just we connected real fast, and he's been a great friend since. And I kind of wanted to get him in today because Dan, I don't know your personal thoughts on everything that's going on locally and how everything's expanding so quickly and so speedily in terms of the cannabis side of the business. My buddy Brandon here is a successful player in the local cannabis scene. And first off, welcome to the show, Brendan. Appreciate you coming in today.
Thanks for having me on.
If I could, let's say that again.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in. I was so focused on Dan, I didn't even have your mic turned all the way up, so now everybody can hear you. So, got my buddy Brandon here, and you're on the kind of the growing side of the cannabis industry, but then you're also a bit on the retail and also in the consulting side of the business, correct?
Well, consulting, not so much as the retail. Couldn't afford that. It's a pretty big.
If you could come a little closer to the mic here. Thank you.
Pretty big hurdle to get over because it's so expensive to get in on the retail side.
Yeah.
But as far as from the genetics all the way to the cultivation, up to the retail point, has been influential in. So it's quite the industry. I mean, it's been for going from black market to recreational, and that transition has been pretty unique all in itself.
There you go. Let's talk about where cannabis is now in regards to kind of where it was when you got into the business, and ultimately where you see it going.
That's a loaded question. I mean, where do you want to start? I mean, there's so much to go through.
Well, let's talk about just kind of where it was when you got your start in it. Because I mean, obviously you are aware of. I mean, you're primarily a grower and you're on the consulting side, but then you do deal with retail. I mean, you
do deal with retail, but I mean, as far as when you first started, it was an underground thing. You had a group of people that were also growers. We, would grow to keep it out of the sight of of the feds and the cops. So there was a lot of filters, a lot of that aspect. But what you notice is in the better part of like 10 years ago from today, the transition has been dramatic in the sense that as early as 10 years ago, you had a kind of a true kind of co-op. People helping people. In a sense, like if you had a problem, somebody had a solution. When it started to turn into recreational, that kind of started to die out. Next thing you know, you'd have to, instead of calling somebody to get a couple of plants, they'd start charging you for it, and that kind of shift. And it's been, like my background started off with a couple of plants, in a dirt pot, and then that kind of turned into a basement, right? 500-600 feet. I always went after strains that were, high potent, stunk really bad, and so you'd have to use multiple filters to keep that smell down.
Yeah.
And then after a couple times, packing dirt out of a basement, that gets old. So you kind of transition, look for different ways of growing. So you start getting into water culture. Far easier to pump water out than it is to, pack dirt out. So you go through and you start perfecting that. But along the way, you meet a lot of good people, other techniques, and you just start applying, different techniques. So it's like a combination of everybody I've ever dealt with, everybody I've met, taking where they went wrong, kind of tearing it apart, putting it back together, and then ended up, growing, and I can grow in dirt or hydro. So it just depends on what setting you're in and where you're at.
Do you see in terms of the process of cutting through, the red tape, because obviously there's a lot of red tape that still you have to be able to cut through from acquiring a license? You and I have had many conversations. I mean, I think the cheapest license that you can really get your hands on today locally is right around $1 million, right?
More for retail, producer processor side is getting really hit. You have a large amount of people that are essentially starting to fail. It's just a combination of the industry working its kinks out.
Okay.
The way that it was put together, there was like some oversight, but not as much as there should have been. You know, so like the liquor board does a good job by regulating. Making sure that you're minding your P's and Q's. Everything is constant under 24-hour surveillance. They can come in at any time. Then also the Department of Agriculture is now starting to get more and more into it, which I feel they should have been into it a little bit earlier, and especially kind of regulating what you spray on that plant, you know, because the end result is that's going to be in somebody's body, you know. You know, there's a lot more work that will need to be done, you know, in order to get in a position where, you know, more into organic growing, more into, you know, a growing method that where you don't have a residual sitting on that plant.
Sure.
You know, if that makes sense. But it's, you know, like as the industry grows, but every industry has its you know, kinks and has its growing pains, and I think we're right in the thick of the middle of one of those. You know. And I think that, you know, obviously the strongest are gonna survive, but hopefully it just doesn't deteriorate too much where it kind of trips over itself. You know. And so there's you know, there's a lot of heart in the industry in itself. So you know, you see it on people's faces; they are dedicated. And then you have some people that you meet along the way that they just thought they were just going to throw some seeds out, let it grow, and swim in cash, you know. And then when it actually becomes a job and realizes, oh man, you know, this is way more than I anticipated, you know. And some people's, you know, I've seen both ways. I've seen people do stuff on a shoestring budget and make a really great product, and I've seen people that have unlimited amount of budget and just fall on their face, you know. So it's really comes down to like any industry. If you know it, right, and you understand it, and if you don't know something, go find somebody that does know. You know. And
educate yourself. Surround yourself with good people like yourself that really have studied up, that have done your due diligence on, you know, what's going on locally within the cannabis scene. If you're just tuning in right now to the show, we're live, Dirty Harry, right here, brand new show, Studio 110.live. Got my two buddies here in the studio, Dan here from Tropical Tan, and of course my buddy Brendan here, who we've done a lot of work together in the past from the cannabis industry. So it sounds like, you know, you're still in the growing side, and you obviously still deal with retail like you do, but you've also from some of our recent conversations have evolved now into the consulting side of the business, correct?
Yeah. So, excuse me. The consulting side is more or less you recognize and identify problems in different areas and different companies, and so really you're giving recommendations, helping them working through a system, kind of changing it up. Because what I've noticed a lot in this industry is when you keep hitting wall after wall, or problem after problem, sometimes you're 5-6 problems down the line, and realize that if you would have just fixed that first problem, you'd have been in really great shape. But trying to fix it, you created another problem, and it kind of spawned out from that. So when the life gets sucked out of you, and then your plants really respond to the way you feel. If you're negative, or if you're depressed and all that, it's going to put stress on your plants. There's even studies that are on that. So if you talk mean to your plant, it's going to die. If you talk nice, it's going to grow. So what you see is what we've noticed in a couple of situations where kind of brought life back to something, and through the growth and methods and different type of aspects that they didn't really see because they were just too weighed down by too much stuff. And so they I don't know how far it's going to go as far as the consulting, but one thing that I'm fortunate and that I'm really glad that I have in me is when I can see something and I can start mapping it out. Been in I can put people in place. And what I mean by that is other people that wouldn't be in the same vicinity or be in contact with each other. I'm kind of that conduit in some cases. And that's backfired on me, but it's also been successful for me as well too. And so as you go through this industry, I mean, it's so competitive when it should be the opposite. Right? We're all trying to do the same thing. We're trying to create a product to the highest quality. So that way when a consumer has it in their hand, right, they're excited about it.
There you go. And you've had a chance to travel quite a bit. When you talk about being in other markets like the California and the Vegas markets, how would you identify them in terms of the separation, in terms of what they're doing compared to what we're doing up here?
Well, California is just, that's the hub. That's where it all started. So when you take California, they just came online on New Year's. As soon as New Year's was a big day for me because I realized that California came online, there's no turning back. That's going to be a $6 billion industry just in that state. You could double check that, but I'm pretty sure that's where it's at. But also too, that's the 6th largest market in the world, and they love they love their cannabis.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
You
I know
go-
Snoop Dogg has his own. Snoop Dogg has his own collection down there, as well as other artists that I know that you and I have talked about in the past. And the packaging looks good. The overall presentation looks good on the store shelves and the different retail locations. I was down there covering the NBA All-Star Weekend, and I stopped by a location with a couple of my guys here from Studio 110, and we went into a real popular place. And I mean, it was a nice store. I mean, it was definitely a nice store. High security. I mean, you definitely had to, leave your ID with the security team, and then you got it back when you walked out of the store, and there were armed guys in the store. And so it was cool to be able to just kind of adapt and to be able to see, what other markets are doing. When you said California was 6, what is our magic number up here in Washington?
Well, considering that there's only a few states that are recreational, I think we're number 2.
Are we number 2?
Maybe number 3. But as you're going to see is and just especially in the last election, right? There was numerous states where more people voted for cannabis to be legalized than their own governor. The tide has shifted, but I think where a lot of the momentum in the cannabis industry has came from was, the medicinal side. So, every time you talk to somebody that's not familiar with cannabis, their first thought and what they talk about is getting stoned, getting high, and just all the stuff that they've been told over the years
Sure.
on how they should feel.
Sure.
So there was a point in time when people started looking at it. There was a guy in California, Rick Simpson's. He's got Rick Simpson's oil. He got cancer. So instead of going for a treatment, he wanted to be proactive and start looking at different ways. And so he educated himself, obviously, and he's got a famous oil. But that spawned a lot of things. So once that comes more to the surface, right, you're going to see a lot of the changes. But I'm kind of scared for those changes because I don't know if it's going to be exploited or if it's going to be put to good use.
Okay.
As an example, there's a little girl named Charlotte, right? So they made a hemp-derived CBD for her. They didn't even name the plant after her, which was Charlotte's Web.
Okay.
Her mother, just a suburban, mother,
Sure.
But when she started getting on the internet, started, reading what was working for other people, she was in a state where it was illegal, So what you did is you took just normal everyday people that were breaking the law and federal law, just to keep their, kid feeling better, Mm-hmm. Now the biggest problem is since it's a Scheduled I drug, right? It has no medicinal purposes, is what it's stated, right? Which is kind of funny because the United States government owns the CBD patent, and there's a company out of the UK, which is GDEV Pharmaceuticals. They have a prescription that they prescribe. I think they're in like 20 different countries. They're the only ones that have a FDA application in currently.
Wow.
That was as of a few weeks, but the industry is evolving so much and it changes. I could be there could be a few more on there, but ultimately where the real spur comes from was when people were told to go home and die, or take your kid to go home and make them comfortable. And when you push a human like that, you push their back against the wall, they're going to fight till the very end.
Sure.
And that's where I think a lot of the push came from. That's where a lot of the legislation, and then as it spawned from that, then as it started, when they started realizing with the dispensary setting up, the original group of dispensaries that set up here in Washington, true medical background, right, helping a lot of people. And then that sort of got exploited a bit because it became an outlet, right? When they were looking at legalizing it, it would have been, the original plan was to have 2 different systems,
Okay.
So you have the recreational system and then the medicinal system. And something got changed along the way. They changed that vote. I think that vote was 50-59 or something like that, if I recall right. And they just put everything under one umbrella. So there's really no medicinal aspect of it. But there's not a day that goes by where somebody asks me about CBD or asks me about the effects or asks me how, what to, like somebody's, sick or somebody's, has an issue.
John, welcome to the show here. Please take this seat right here. It's good to see you. I got to give you a handshake. Normally I don't give handshakes live on the radio, but come on in. Ryan, welcome to the show. Mac, welcome to the show. We got a big popular show here today. If we can close my studio door, if we don't mind, thank you very much. John, take a seat here. I haven't seen you in a long time. It's great to see you on happy occasions like this. If you can come closer to the mic here for me and put on these headphones so everybody can hear you. And you and I had the opportunity to meet each other a number of years ago through my friend Sean Kemp. If you can come on the mic here for me, if you can just get close to the mic so everybody can hear you, John.
Got it.
You and I met each other a number of years ago through Sean Kemp when he played for the Sonics and superstar. And I know we're going to get Sean Kemp in here with some other NBA players on the brand new show here, Studio110.live. Follow us on Instagram. Well, welcome to the show. It's great to see you. You're looking younger than ever. So you got some sort of magic touch working for you here.
Oh, my friends keep me young.
Yeah, there you go. So, Brendan, before we transition back to John here, I wanted to ask you, Brendan, in terms of the growing operational side of the business, and I've had the opportunity to come to one of your locations in terms of seeing how the lighting and the water flow and just you've got staff in there managing it up. I mean, it's a big operation. How do you, like, in terms of the due diligence that you put into the process every day, in terms of the separation, in terms of prioritizing from the initial planting of the seed to the whole entire crop phase? I mean, just walk me through kind of the step-by-step timeline on how that how the operation works. And I know, John, you can obviously speak on this too, but whoever wants to answer the question. But
everything originally starts with the seed. Once you have a plant that's grown up, then you can cut off of that plant and create what is called a clone.
Okay.
Right? So the fascinating part is you're taking a living plant matter and making an exact replica. So the vast majority of plants that you see that are in all the pictures, all that usually just comes from a clone. So you take it from that clone. Usually takes 2 weeks for it to root, and then you transfer it. It goes into a veg stage for 4 weeks, and then you convert that over to a bloom stage, which the lights are on 12 and 12.
Yep.
And then you start to get the flower, right? So now flower and the bud smoking aspect is just the beginning of it, but there's just so much more that can be done to that plant after it. Whether you're washing the trichomes off, whether through an alcohol process or a BHO process, which is a propane or butane process, or a CO2 process, which is just a pressure, and you get the oil. Then from that oil, there's so many more other aspects that you can do with that. You can put it in the food, you can vape it, so on and so on. So there's endless amount of the plant. What I'm looking forward to is figuring out when we actually harvest the plant, you got all the plant material. Why can't you grind that up and make pulp and make something out of it?
So that's your next level of brilliance that you're working on to expand the cannabis arena, so everybody can ultimately benefit it from not only the growing side, but the full circumference on the operational side, from retail to, and how it affects people that really are struggling on a health level. I mean, we've seen it a lot of times where people, they won't even, they'll just kind of give up going to the doctor, and they'll go into one of their favorite, like Uncle Ike's. Ian was up here last week from Uncle Ike's, and like you said earlier, they'll do whatever they need to do, and it'll be night and day. They'll just feel better. So you can really see the true core fundamental effects from how cannabis is really coming in and changing the industry drastically. And I'm excited here. I've got my good friend here, Ryan Conley here from FutureNet here, who's continuing to launch something major here. We're going to get Ryan on the mic here in a few minutes. Ryan, if you want to pull this mic over there. So everybody here in the studio, this is Ryan Conley. Ryan Conley is our top sponsor here at Studio110.live. All this is responsible for my relationship here with Ryan. Ryan, this is Dan from Tropical Tan.
How you doing, Dan?
He owns 16 locations around the state. This is my buddy Brandon here.
What's up, Brandon?
He's a pretty big player on the growing side. And then this is my old friend here, John. And John, if you can come closer to the mic, you mentioned on the phone that you were one of the original guys in the state that kicked this off, right? You're one of the power players.
The beginning.
If you can come a little closer so people can hear you. Yep.
Yeah.
How many growing operations are you currently overseeing right now?
Probably about 30.
30.
Yeah.
And primarily, where are they? Where are they all? Are they all over the state?
All over the state.
So you must have a team then of people that you have to send out to watch all your farms, and I mean it's a lot of work. I mean you just can't do this by yourself. So
Well, I've been at it so long, I don't really have to work that hard.
yeah, you got a team that ultimately reports to you.
I got a great team, and I don't even report to anybody.
That's great.
I was just with him yesterday at one of his places
Yeah.
in Eastern Washington. Extremely impressive. The layout, the setup, everything through and through. You know, it's great to see when you come across a setup where people are doing it right. But very impressive. It's a big, huge compound. Look forward to coming back in May or June when it starts to fill up, and then again at the end of the harvest to really see it all unfold. And that's really the really great part about you get to take something and watch it grow up. I mean,
there's nothing more exciting than that. And my buddy Ryan and we always have our fun morning, exciting conversations that kick off the day for us in terms of everything we're doing here at Studio 110.live's headquarters. And you mentioned earlier, Ryan, that you had some very successful, good business meetings recently with a couple guys that I'm sure they know of on the cannabis side. Ryan, if you want to kind of let my guests here, studio audience, know about what you're continuing to build up and how really we can see how cannabis is changing people's lives, but just kind of a little background on you, so the other guests can be aware of it, Ryan.
Well, yesterday and last night was just absolutely amazing. First of all, getting to know a lot of people in the cannabis industry. We were at New Friends' place up there. It's a really nice penthouse downtown Seattle. You guys know what I'm talking about, right?
Are you familiar with New Friends? Are you familiar? They're more on the growing on the growing side, so not so much on the retail side.
Well, all right, so we're up at this office last night and just meeting with different company owners of oil companies, for example, who are here in the building as well with us right now,
Yep.
and just networking, and just absolutely amazing to watch people bringing the cannabis to the world while we were really focusing on bringing cryptocurrency and changing the social media aspect. But what I really noticed last night was just how we can really help each other, like really get cannabis out there in a really cutting edge way. And if we could do that through a Facebook that actually pays the people in Bitcoin, that's where I'm really putting a focus right now, is bringing the cannabis and the cryptocurrency together as the innovators, the people at the forefront of all this, right? And this FutureNet, we're the largest cryptocurrency social media network out there, and all these people know about Bitcoin. They're a little bit more cutting edge. They know about the CBDs, what those are doing. They know how good medical marijuana is for people. I mean, I just keep all these wonderful testimonies.
I was saying it a couple of years ago, you got just in the state $2.2 billion that went through, and the vast majority of that was cash, because the banks are too afraid to step in and do anything about it. But the quickest way to get the feds to drop their attitude and actually make it so we can operate as an actual business is something like a Bitcoin or a coin system, because that's when it comes to the Fed, that is a major concern for them, because they can't regulate it. They're trying to figure out all the steps. But I think this might be, I said it a couple of years ago. I was like, well, why couldn't you just, instead of carrying a bunch of cash, why couldn't you just have a currency, a cryptocurrency, and keep it that way?
Well, we spend so much time of our lives making, entering credit card information, doing this. Just the amount of time that a quick Bitcoin transaction takes, it saves everyone a headache, so we can enjoy a little bit few minutes in life, each time, instead of going through stuff like that. I think moving forward with this show as well, we're going to really witness the cryptocurrency space coming into the marijuana space, and the blockchain technologies that are back this, and the Ethereum networks, and these are some of the conversations we had last night. There is some very, very big things happening right now in the crypto and the hemp industry right now.
I know a few people that their whole garage is just full of servers right now. During the winter,
and I know people growing weed in their garages.
That's dying.
So maybe off the air, you two, I think it'd be good for you two to connect and speak and exchange contact information, and of course John too. I'd like, when I can't be out there because I'm on the radio till 3 o'clock, but if you two could all connect with Ryan and his team outside of the studio here at Studio 110.live's headquarters. So John, talk about what was the year that you got into the business, since you're kind of considered, the kind of the quote unquote OG of the cannabis business here in the state of Washington.
I think I started when I was selling 3-finger bags on the used tab.
If you can come a little closer to the mic here for me.
That was about 66, 67.
66, 67. So from 66 to 67, talk about how you literally have evolved, the cannabis, the cannabis business overall, from the growing side to the retail side to just, ultimately changing people's lives.
Well, I literally ripped out my rear view mirrors. I don't need those anymore.
Yep.
We went from using lights from the tennis court to today, LED.
And you deal with, other players in the NBA where they're, reaching out to you because they have their certain levels of product that they want for their houses, and talk about some of those relationships with those guys.
My hat's off to the NBA.
Yeah.
They made my life easy.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
82 times a year.
That's great. That's great. And do they kind of put in their special orders? They have their own kind of product placement that they that they want ultimately.
They just came to me for the purple.
Yeah, yeah.
And same with the whole industry, entertainment.
Not that you have to, John, because you're in a place that you're where you need to be. But do you have any opportunities, or do you have any drive to be able to come outside of Washington State on the growing side, or do you want?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been working with all the Indian tribes.
That's great.
From Florida to California, Nevada.
That's great. And so what would be your next venture outside of Washington State to be able to tap into?
I think I will be in Las Vegas is where I've been looking.
Great. And Brandon, similar size to his Eastern Washington growing operation? Is that kind of like what you guys are referring to?
Yeah, that's pretty good size.
Yeah.
It's 18 tier 3s.
And let's just talk about the dollar amount, John. Just so from one of your farms alone, can we talk about just how that equates to a dollar amount in terms of when, not an exact number, but just one farm in particular? Because I'm not in the business. I'm not in the cannabis business, but just from having like Ian Eisenberg in here, my buddy from Uncle Ike's, and just kind of doing my homework and my show prep and my research on them. I mean, on the retail side, you can see that these guys are, doing well over $1 million a month.
Yeah, and the retailers control the money. They tell us what they're paying.
Yeah, they control the market.
Okay. Yeah. So is there kind of somewhat of a closed proximity, kind of, a drop down in the conversation, or is it a respect level all the way through where they need you and you need them ultimately, right? It's a happy marriage.
Kind of.
It's a work in progress, like anything. It'll, time will tell. There's a lot of issues that need to be worked out. We're probably going to get more regulation coming our way with the Department of Agriculture coming on board. In this industry, it changes by the day.
Yep.
And I think a lot of other producer processors, a lot of retailers could say the exact same thing. So it's just you're navigating something new every day. And so right now we don't have vertical integration. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing just yet.
Okay.
One thing that I can say is you have a lot of product that's would be for this area, and as traverse as we are as into the cannabis is fairly subpar.
Yep.
So but then you have a group of people that are really extremely good, right?
Yep.
So it's kind of you're starting to see the separation in between the two. So when you're prepared and you know what you're doing, those brands are starting to really take off, right? And then you have the ones that for instance, in some cases, when you have a demographic. I should say, you have a demographic that's not even really going into the store, and that's that 21 to 30-year-old demographic.
Okay. Okay.
But slowly, that demographic will go in there, but you have to give them a reason to go in there.
Okay.
And as the black market aspect, or what I like to call is the gray market, is pretty much dead. Just wasn't too long ago, a pound of weed was between $2,000 and $3,000, right? I mean, I imagine it's probably $500-600 now. Just because it's the access, right? So the state set out and accomplished their job, and that was to kill the black market aspect of it. It has clearly done that. So now in order to go and get those people, you have to create a product that they're going to continue to grab off the shelf every time. Yes, it is quite a bit more expensive than just getting it from your friend, but Americans are essentially like convenience. That's why convenience stores on every corner. So if you don't have to wait for somebody and you can swing by on the way to a party or on the way to a gathering or whatever you're going to do, that's exactly what you're going to do.
Yep.
So I see that once that, I said, what I said before, we're in a little bit of growing pains. Really looking forward to the medical side aspect catching up and coming on. I think there's going to be a lot of traction when it comes to that. And it'll be interesting to see which direction that goes, whether it's responsible or it's not responsible in a sense where it gets exploited. And so, like anything, all these industries are new, and it's going to be quite the ride. But it's, I think it was 4 years now with the recreational.
We're only in the beginning.
Only in the beginning. So, John, what gets you when you kick off your daily morning, get through your daily routines from the growing operational side? You said 29 farms ultimately. Like, what gets you excited? What gets you amped to kick off the day, knowing the empire that you've built up on the growing kind of farmer side of the cannabis business?
I'm just fortunate that I'm able to work with this industry.
Yeah.
For so long I wasn't a citizen.
Yep.
Now I'm part of the program.
That's great. That's great. And you've set a legacy in place where you're a well-respected individual locally in the cannabis business. And I hope my buddy here, Ryan Conley from FutureNet and Future Music and everything that we're doing, I really do want you guys to talk to him off the air when we transition guests through. I know I've got a busy show here today, but it would definitely be good. It would be a good thing for you to be talking to Ryan. FutureNet is something that you definitely shouldn't be closing your eyes to, just with the overall application of FutureNet. And Ryan, this is a true testament. Ryan had his dad up here to our Studio 110.Live's headquarters a couple weeks back, and Ryan's dad is a remarkable, renowned, great guy. He's a great guy, and we had a conversation, and he said, he asked me, he said, how many sons out there can be able to do what they did for him, referring to his father. And another monumental experience that we had up here, just so you guys know, was one of Ryan's partners flew up here and we had a catered breakfast. And this gal was, Ryan, you can jump in, but she was an Uber driver, and she was having a hard time making ends meet. And you and the partners and team, set her up, for the appropriate due diligence processes for FutureNet and everything that she's part of now. And now she's cashing out about $5,000 a day.
Yeah, she's taking part. It's really interesting to see, people. Growing marijuana, but then there's also us Bitcoin miners out there also that this is a process that's taking place, and everyone has the ability right now to actually be part of the mining process. So talking about FutureNet, we have the world's first social media cryptocurrency, and we have mining we can discuss involved in this, okay? And it's just kind of fun. I've been mining Bitcoin for 4 years now, and so the social media network is mining their own coin. You got Bitcoin out there with Bitcoin mining, and the Ethereum and stuff, and so it's a fun conversation, to say the least, and it puts you in touch with smart people. And to me, I see it priceless. Just
And look how it's evolved. I mean, Ryan and I have been friends for many years, and we reacquainted shortly after the new year. He knew, he knew about me. He listened to my show all the time at my former radio station, and we both have the same vision. I mean, I can tell you right now, there aren't too many live shows like this happening in this city where we broadcast from, and no one really listens to the radio anymore. I mean, I don't think any of you guys in your car are flipping through the dial wanting to listen to long commercial breaks and tight playlists. I mean, it's not the new age of technology anymore.
So now we can go to Harris's podcast on Studio 1 and 2 on YouTube and search through titles, and just like a Joe Rogan podcast or something like this. And we really want to be the podcast station for having
music, fashion,
something on hemp all the time. Behind this board, there's actually ideas of different things that we've come up with, whether it's relationships or sports, medical, stem cell injections. I mean, all kinds of cool stuff. Float tanks. We want cool. If there's any cool podcast, we want to uplift your friends and bring them on the show and really make this the biggest.
The hub, the central.
Podcast.
Absolutely. I mean, even for you, John, too. You have a lot of people underneath you. So I would welcome you to come in on my show anytime, and hopefully Ryan could be in on those shows. Ryan is a busy guy. He travels quite a bit. But if you have an opportunity to be in, it would be great to have you come in. And if Ryan can't be here, he has a team of people here that they can meet with. And we're not making these things up. I mean, we're seeing the proof in the pudding. We're seeing former Uber drivers who are now whose lives have changed. And we're seeing, for example, Ryan's dad. I mean, he doesn't have to work anymore. I mean, you can see the true.
Well, he worked hard his entire life, but it's without making huge income claims. Let's just say that there's moving forward, the digital tech giants, that money that they make is going to be returning back to the people, the content producers, whether it's YouTube or Twitter or Google. So it's going to be. And have the world's first social media network that's actually uncensored and encrypted. I feel this is a really perfect fit for the cannabis space out there.
Yep.
And again, cutting edge people that get the memo a little bit earlier on in life. I mean, some people on Facebook probably don't know what CBD is. Oh, just like some people don't know what's Bitcoin on Facebook also, right?
So you're not going to use our personal information for your business gain, like the other social media aspects?
No, we don't.
No, I know. But I just want to touch on what you were saying earlier. so like with the Bitcoin and and in the internet currency, a lot of that got its spurned because there's it solves a lot of problems. As you see more and more, cash is kind of a nussance. So it's far easier to just get on your phone, make a couple clicks, and send something. Send a coin. So I just started recently, kind of getting hip to it. I know a couple people that are pretty deep in it. And all with the exchanges and know far more than me. But it's been interesting. But as you can tell, when Fortune 500 companies are now marketing jobs specifically for this type of thing, then that's the future.
Yeah, and the future technology. I mean, technology is supposed to make it so we, work smarter, not harder. Technology should be making things a lot more easy. And I think moving forward, the concept of companies making movements and making things happen. It's not that you have to go have a job with a corporation. It's the collective thoughts, of everyone working together. Where it's, all of us talking about, bringing the hemp industry to this. This is going to be a huge movement. There's going to be a lot of money in social media. So. I think it's a real awakening, and I think that social media has brought a lot of people together, right? We got Jared Mirsky in the house, who I haven't seen for a while here.
I haven't seen Jared. Last time I saw Jared was at his office. We had a nice little lunch down there. So Mac, if Mac can take a seat right here next to Ryan.
He looks like a grown man now with the beard there.
He does. He does. Mac, if you don't mind, Mac Slug can take a seat here. And is Erica, my show producer, she around here? I'm not sure where she is. Well, in the meantime, we'll get my buddy Jared here if we can get those headphones on you. Jared brought in a little special guest here. It looks like today.
A little blazy.
Is this probably the first time this little dog's been in an on-air live studio? So the dog is making a debut on the air here too with Jared Mirsky, a respected consultant who's developed a nice business down there on First Avenue. You're actually in the same offices as USC Productions, right?
That's right.
That they throw all the shout out to Chad and everybody down at USC who throws all the big productions, the raves, and they're always successful. So big shout out to them. Looking forward to having them on the show as well. So Jared, it's nice to have you here. It's been a while. It's good to see you. I see you all over social media, winning awards left and right, and you're doing your speaking engagements, and you're ultimately putting Washington on the map on a continuous pattern like it deserves to be through the company that you founded.
Yeah.
If you can just get closer to the mic here so everybody can hear.
Yep.
So let's talk about Jared Mirsky's company and ultimately what you do for the cannabis industry locally, nationally, and internationally.
So, about 10 years ago, I recognized an opportunity to help the cannabis industry rebrand itself by way of creating good brands in an industry where good brands didn't really exist. And I mean, a brand is really the promise you make to your customers. So ultimately, we're looking at more than just the aesthetic, but the product and the approach and the process and
you can just come a little closer to the mic.
And the overall quality, essentially. Yeah. But ultimately, 10 years ago, I started a cannabis-focused design firm. As I mentioned, focused solely on the cannabis space.
Yeah.
And back then, a majority of our clients were dispensaries.
Yep.
Cultivators didn't want to be known. They didn't want to be found. In fact, they remained in the shadows. And so, their reputation lied solely on the quality of their product and the alias of their grow name, so to speak. And that's not where the industry's at anymore.
Yeah. I want to introduce you. I don't know if you know my buddy Brendan here and my buddy John. You guys don't need to get up and shake hands, but it's kind of a cannabis show here today. Ryan and I had a great, exciting meeting this morning about some new people that are joining the Studio 110.Live's team here at where we broadcast from here in Bellevue, Washington. We're a domestic show. We're becoming an international show. Thanks to everybody following us on our Instagram right now. It's growing rapidly. Follow us on our Instagram at Studio 110.Live. So how do you feel, Jared, in terms of where we're at right now locally within the cannabis industry and business? How are we going to set an example for one of the top contenders nationally, but also internationally, to be able to evolve the business, to be able to open up new growth patterns for ultimately the customer and the consumer?
That's a great question, and the easiest answer for that is social responsibility. The number one brand trend in cannabis is social responsibility. But in the world, the Edelman Trend Report states that in 2017, VR is number one and social responsibility is number two.
Okay.
But in my opinion, given my experience in the industry, social responsibility is certainly the epicenter of where brands need to be focusing their messaging on.
Okay.
Primarily Canada
Yep.
is a good example, given the fact that they have imposed regulations that stipulate they're not allowed to present any kind of lifestyle attached to their brand. And so I've been flying out there and speaking to a lot of licensed producers about how to develop a brand when you can't attach any kind of lifestyle to it. And the answer always remains the same, and that's social responsibility. I mean, even a majority of new consumers still don't do due diligence or research prior to going into a dispensary. They rely on the bud tender to give them that information. And most stores don't regularly keep up with their education. And so I feel like a lot of consumers still get they're still misinformed, especially when you look at brands positioning themselves with a packaging system that relies on indica, sativa, and hybrid, when we all know that terpene profiles really dictate the attributes one would get and receive from the actual product itself. And so what we're seeing as a trend is breaking those habits as a way of informing people that I'm just going to name like Blue Dream.
Yeah.
Not one Blue Dream is the same as another Blue Dream.
Okay.
And so the consistency has been rather nil. And what people are starting to do is approach strains by way of attributing attributes. And so if I had 4 products that were sativa, right? Technically, if we're using that as the
Sure.
We would more likely identify those as like a term like excite or energize or something to that effect. Or we could get even more granular and get into like create and innovate and like talk about really interesting attributes that are the product of this terpene profile.
Okay. And you have an award-winning local business that you've developed and built and built into pattern that's doing well. Give me the name of your company.
Wick and Mortar.
Wick and Mortar. Okay.
Yep.
Wick and Mortar, and you're down there on First Avenue.
Yep.
And I've been to your office. I've met your employees. In fact, the day I happened to be down there, I wasn't even expecting it, but you had a chef or a catering company bring you in a really delicious lunch, and you got a really cool setup down there.
Thank you.
Talk about just kind of your day in and day out of your responsibilities in terms of being the ultimate pilot in the cockpit down there, flying the operation, in terms of kind of a typical day for Jared, on what you're ultimately trying to excel and do on the cannabis side of the business.
Well, we're not like most branding agencies. We have, given the fact that we're in the cannabis industry specifically, and we have the ability to work with all types of businesses within the cannabis space, we've developed an ecosystem that allows us to do more than just build brands for companies. We throw events. We have a clothing line we're developing.
Oh, good. Because I remember when I was down at your office, we did talk about fashion. We had a fashion conversation, and I'm glad to see it. It's developing nicely. So
yeah, and the events that we throw, given we work with just hundreds of CEOs and leaders in the cannabis space, we throw these massive events here in Seattle, and they all fly down from all over the world, and we get to create this really amazing network opportunity for our clients. But to kind of circle back, what does my day-to-day look like? Well, it's not graphic and web design anymore.
Yep.
Although that used to be it when I started the company, because it was just me. But
it's definitely evolved into other shapes and patterns.
Yeah. I mean, being the CEO, you don't get to be the creative guy anymore.
Right.
You get to be the boss, and so with that comes a lot of responsibilities. But I find it interesting now, given the fact that I've really immersed myself in business strategy, and I think that's pretty fun. But ultimately, I'm doing sales and doing all the business development and marketing, and so I mean, it is fun, but I'm not touching the creative stuff anymore. Yeah.
Sure. And what, like I said earlier, I kind of expanded on the question in terms of where, locally, where we need to expand in terms of the retail side of the development. Like, for example, Ian, when Uncle Ike's was in here, he was telling me that just on a weekly basis, he has, reps coming by, not necessarily meeting with him, but meeting with his team and meeting with the bud tenders. And he really gives his bud tenders the power and the authority to, try out the product as it's coming in and figure out what's going to work for his, particular locations, because he knows his customer base and he knows where he knows where he's, the most successful in terms of the operational side of the business.
Right.
So as we talk about in terms of the, what we're seeing on the product placement standpoint, You mentioned fashion. So fashion, I think, is a good prime example. And we don't see a lot of fashion inundated with a lot of these retail stores. A lot of them are just focused on developing new growth patterns. I mean, right? Developing new growth patterns and excelling on that. Like, it's like any store. It's like you bring in a new product, you want to be able to develop the pattern nicely. So it kind of, develops that strong inner threshold in. So from the consulting side of the business, what are some kind of secrets, for a lot of cannabis people that are watching and listening right now, your recommendations and thoughts moving forward to be able to, because I think at the end of the day, it's very competitive. I mean, it's very competitive. There's a lot of stores out there, and, look, they all have their core niche following, but, we could all probably hope to have a new, set of, a customer base. So what's your thought process on that?
I'd say the three biggest things that I would institute as my tips or recommendations is, first of all, hire an expert.
Yeah.
You don't see many growers doing their own accounting.
Yeah.
And then the second is understand and be familiar with the process. Building a brand is not as easy as going to Fiverr and paying $5 to get a logo made and then throwing some copy on there and hoping that that's going to resonate with customers.
Sure.
Because it's not.
No,
and
no.
I could talk about the process all day long, but and then I would say the second thing is, or the third thing is network.
Yep.
Put yourself out there. Talk to people. Make yourself known, even if you're not.
Yep.
Just engage.
Do you recommend a lot of these, owners of the stores to even do? And I even tell the staff here, and we're gonna be doing a lot more of them. But it's so easy to just, you don't have to get a big camera crew to come in and spend all these hundreds and dollars to be able to produce one. But on a good quality phone today, you can do a 25, 30-second video, and you can be able to put that on your social media. I mean, obviously Instagram is surpassing Facebook in a lot of ways. And just to be able to kind of have your own stream, your own commercials, your own, base built into, your ultimate conglomerate to be able to, let people know. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's really about product placement, and it's enhancing product placement.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Gary Vaynerchuk says it best. He refers to social media platforms as their own channel, network channel.
Yep.
Certain people who are going to view certain types of content, or certain people are going to resonate better with certain types of content on Snapchat than they are on Instagram. And not everybody uses all of these social networks. So you need to make sure that you're building content specific to the channel so that you can cast a much larger net, but stay focused on the customer base you're focusing on.
There you go. And what frustrates you about just the business where it's at right now? What do you think the business is lacking that we ultimately need to be able to continue to support the growing side, the retail side, and the operational side of the cannabis industry here locally in Washington?
I think we can all agree that 1080E needs to be gone.
Education. Mm-hmm. Education is crucial. It's key in order to keep it moving forward. If you can create a baseline and start getting people educated, so that way that it kind of takes away from the stigma, and it'll
and what's the easiest, most effective way to educate people? Like, well, what's the most rapid way to be able to do this? To be able to, are you saying to get 1080E out of the way here?
No, I wouldn't say that has anything to do with educating anyone. I would just say it has a lot to do with how the internal workings of the cannabis industry can better flourish, given the fact that as a branding agency, most companies that come to a marketing or branding firm, they can write those expenses off.
Yep.
They can.
You can.
I mean, also too, if you, in many cases, you're going through and you run out of funds, it's not like you can go get a bank loan. You got to rely on, people with deep pockets, and in some cases, predatory lending in a sense,
Sure.
Because people are so passionate and want to hurry up and get it done that they've, ultimately ended up in a bad deal.
Yep.
But I wanted to touch on what he said is in the state you can't necessarily just outright, do promotions. There's a lot of restrictions when it comes to advertising, So the way I think that a lot of it's going to get around that is obviously social media. People talking to people, and then once they find something and grab a hold of something, it spreads.
But you can incorporate, like what I just said, Brendan, you can incorporate some of these personalized videos, right? Where a store could get behind it, an owner or a bud tender or whoever on the operational side of the retail side of the business, where they could produce these commercials. And I mean, I don't think there's any laws in place that says you can't, promote something. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not an expert on cannabis, but why wouldn't you? I mean, you'd be able
It's
to.
the government, honestly. It's their networks are very scared to join the cannabis kind of movement and allow those types of capabilities.
Okay.
So it's unfortunate, but it'll get there.
But also on many platforms,
If you can just pull the mic up here a little bit. There you go. Thanks.
in many platforms, in many cases, the social medias will kick you off if they feel like you're promoting a drug culture. So the vast majority of the country is not legalized yet. So you still there's a lot of people that get a lot of huge following, through Instagram and Twitter and all that, and then they'll get kicked off, and then they gotta almost pretty much start all over again.
Yeah.
And there are definitely nuances to be mindful of when building accounts that specifically result in getting, deleted.
Okay.
And so I'd be happy to share you our practices. I'd be happy to share you. I cannot talk.
Yeah, you guys should definitely definitely talk
Yeah.
off there. So I'm guessing this is my guy Max Slug right here, correct? Which one's Max Slug? Is Max Slug not here in the studio yet? Okay, I have a busy show today, and I was told that it was. You guys were one of the members, so I guess I can keep my current segment going. I didn't want to be rude to my guys back there, so I'm all about
Lazy's keeping them company.
all about respect here at Studio 110.live, my brand new show, Dirty Harry, back at it. 19 years on holding down that #1 show out at Cube Radio here, and it's good to be on a show like this because I don't have to refrain from anything. I don't have anybody, telling me, that I can talk for this long, or I have to play this many commercials, or I have record companies, knocking down my door saying, play this record. I can do whatever I want here. So, and it's nice how it's opening it up to music, fashion, pop culture, nightlife, cannabis, relationships, everything going on the tech side, everything going on with FutureNet and Future Music and Crypto Team Extreme and blockchain and Ryan's staff. And, we're doing a lot of things here. I've got a major announcement I'm making tomorrow on the show about, I'm not going to give any details away, but two of our crew members just landed in Los Angeles a couple hours ago, and they're working on some stuff for us down there in order for me to make a big announcement tomorrow. That'll be happening. My producer and assistant are telling me that'll be happening around 3 o'clock local time out here in the Pacific Northwest, where the show broadcasts from. Jared, for people that want to have the dream to acquire a license, and I know it's not cheap, especially in the Seattle area, from what my friends are telling me. What would be your advice to be able to? Because people see, look, I mean, there's no hidden clause here. There's no hidden ingredients in terms of what you can make off it. I mean, you can make a lot of money if it's done right. So, what would be your proper footsteps and recommendations to be able to just to be able to start in it?
Gosh, that's there are a lot of answers to that question. I think that, well, if you're networking and you're out there, people might approach you with the opportunity of purchasing their license.
Okay.
So that's one. So again, networking.
Okay.
But I would also say that there are, other groups of there are businesses out there that help support the efforts of obtaining licenses.
Do you do that within your company?
No, we don't.
Okay.
That's just not in our
Not your wheelhouse? Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
But it doesn't mean we can't help them do that, given our reach.
Yep.
I would say a strong suit of ours more so might be to help take a brand national by way of white labeling their brand through other cultivators. We have relationships across the globe.
Okay.
So that is a much easier feat for us to tackle than going through the licensing. We've got clients that we work with currently that can help our clients facilitate those types of deals.
Yep, and obviously, I mean, he's going to be a guest coming up on the show too. My buddy Dave Tran from what's the name of Dope
Yep.
Magazine? He'll be coming on the show. So, out of all the platforms and out of all the speaking engagements and everything that you've surrounded yourself with within the cannabis industry, Jared, what's been the most exciting thing for you to witness so far from what your company's done from local to national to international?
That's a tough question, primarily because there's just been so much action happening And for most people that have been in the industry, they'll tell you 6 months in the industry is like 2 years.
Yeah.
And I've been in it for 10, so that's like what, 30?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know, my math's probably off.
But I know you've spoken at some large summits in front of a lot of people, and I've seen some of the Q&As, and I mean obviously you're out there for a reason. You're a respected figure here, based locally, and to help enhance on your side of what you're doing in terms of the cannabis business overall. So
yeah, I mean, I would just say I'm probably most happy about how fast the movement is becoming. I mean, I love the fact that more states are coming online because that results in more business for us.
Sure.
I mean, especially since Canada has hit, we've seen a huge spike in business, given the relationships and connections that we have there. So,
on an international level, what are some countries that you're currently doing business with on the cannabis side?
well, obviously the U.S.,
Yep.
Spain, Canada. That's pretty much it
Okay.
right now. I mean, we've had a couple like one-offs in other countries, but I wouldn't really call or consider those states that we best represent, given the lack of clients that we've had there.
And where would you say Spain is right now? If we talked about Spain, for example, on an appropriate timeline in terms of where we're at here in the U.S., like are they at our level? Are they behind us? Have they grown past us? I mean,
Let's put it this way: Washington is probably the furthest ahead in everywhere.
Gotcha.
In terms of, I wouldn't say science, I would say Israel, but I would definitely say as far as consumer-focused branding, Washington State is very much ahead of the pack. In fact, my client named his company I-502 in Spain.
wow, that's
Yeah.
cool.
I would say Israel's leaps and bounds ahead as far as growing because they know how to
Well, I'm just talking
grow.
about the branding side.
Yeah. But I see that as it gets across the world and all through, the UK is an emerging market. A lot of the stuff, because when you look at all the Cannabis Cup winners through like High Times or in Amsterdam, they all come from either Vancouver, or this area and down into the West Coast.
Okay.
This has always been a hub for the premium cannabis. And so this is kind of like where when they started perfecting that plant, and then it just kind of spread from there. I think Vancouver had 5 years in a row where the top cup winning strain in Amsterdam was right out of Vancouver.
Wow. Wow. What are your thoughts, Jared, on just kind of like Snoop Dogg and a lot of artists have their own deals, their own lines that they're continuing to develop and get into play. Like out of all the artists that have their own cannabis ultimate collections, for retailers for their fan base, who are you seeing kind of ahead of the curve and why ultimately?
Well, I would first say that celebrity brands don't do nearly as well as regular ones or just your standard brand focused on some sort of lifestyle.
Okay.
Primarily, and there's a number of reasons. When you look at what 50 Cent did with Alizé, he didn't put Alizé by 50 Cent. No, it's just a product that he endorsed, he built.
Yeah.
It's behind him. So
Yeah.
he's not using his own personality to help reinforce the brand. The brand speaks on its own, right?
Okay.
When you look at Snoop's by Leaf and you look at Willie's Reserve, and you look at
Who's Willie Reserve? Which artist?
Willie
is it?
Nelson.
Oh, Willie Nelson. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you look at Marley's Naturals.
Okay.
Marley's Naturals really, really had to step it up as far as adding new rev streams to the mix in order to obtain the amount of customer base they have.
Sure.
And I can get into that later, but they just don't do nearly as well. And the biggest reason is that you can actually track the UBI number to the original grower.
Okay.
So you might see Snoop's by Leaf with one UBI number, and then you might see this other brand that costs far less with the same UBI number. Well, guess what? That product comes from the company that is actually charging less for their own brand and charging more for Snoop's by Leaf. So Snoop's by Leaf isn't actually growing. Snoop isn't actually growing his own. He doesn't have his own farm.
Right.
He's licensing it
Right.
out.
Right.
And
So-
the reason why you keep hitting that is because there's not a pathway yet through the state to bring in new genetics or to operate on a genetic capacity. So the vast majority of the strains that are on the market right now have been there from their 2-week window when they were allowed to bring in plants.
Gotcha.
Not to say that there's new ones that have been in that got in however it got in, but there was a discussion with the state just recently, and they were just talking about genetics, and it just kind of got shut down. But in this industry, genetics is the future. Because what you have in this now is you got 1,313 producer processors, right? And you probably got 200 or 300 of them growing the exact same strain, you know? And so when you have that, that just creates unnecessary competition,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
And so you know, because, you know, when you started putting all this together, I wanted to start, you know, looking at the genetic aspect of it and then, you know, building off of that, you know? So, you know, you get, you know, when you're when I say genetics is, you're taking a plant and crossing it with another plant, and you're essentially coming up with almost a, you know, brand new plant. You know, the science is starting to catch up because people are starting to get into the tissue culture aspect of it. You know,
What's the tissue culture? What's that?
Just real quick, you take the, you know, you take the leaf, and then you cut out the middle of it. There's a, you know, a solution that you put in it, sits in there for 8 weeks and grows a whole new plant. Roots
Gotcha.
out. I mean,
Okay.
It's a lot way more technical than that.
Okay.
But it just
That's the Cliff Note version. Yeah.
yeah, and it's kind of along the lines I said earlier about cloning, you know. But what you have though is just you have a series of plants that have been stressed and re-stressed, so they're more prone to bugs and they're more prone to mildews and all of that. And there's really no lifeblood being able to be pumped in, and so some of the, like I said, the industry a lot of its time is kind of trips over itself, you know, and then but there's no push. Like as an example. You have well over 1,300 producer processors. You have 560 stores, right? Why is there not a lobby? Why is there not a group of people that kind of, you know, come and stand up, right? Get the people that understand the industry to help make the laws, to help make the rules and the regulations. But everybody is so competitive, right, that they can't even take a second to even help themselves along the line. Some people are doing it, but they, you know, it's not as, you know, rapidly progressing as it should. You know?
Gotcha.
So every time they make a new rule, new regulation, it's actually the industry's fault for not being, you know, having input on that because you're not organized in order to correct it. You know.
Okay.
And he mentioned Washington is kind of leaps and bounds. I feel Colorado, you know, has a few different aspects. You know, like they use their tax dollars to pay for schools.
Sure.
You know,
sure.
they, you know, Washington. I'm not quite sure exactly what, you know, what they do with it, but there's some aspects. But I think moving forward, you know, if we can start getting more of the science on it, you know, involved in it, you're going to see a lot more change, a lot more cool aspects that are gonna evolve just from that.
There you go. If you're just tuning in, you're you're watching us on our live stream with our cameras here in the studio, or you're listening to us at work. Studio 110.live, my brand new radio show here. Got my great producer Erica, who works so hard to manage my calendar up for me and keep the show in progress. Follow us on our Instagram at Studio110.live. I got my buddy Jared Mursky here today. Got my buddy Brendan. Got my old friend here, John, from way back in the day. I like shows like this that, you know, really it's all about relationships to me. And, you know, you and I go back so many years, John, and Brendan, you and I go back, and Jared and I, we've known each other, but we connected at your office. I was, you know, I don't know, it was probably 6 months ago now, maybe a little bit longer, and. I like shows where we can all, like, we're all kind of on you guys are on different ends of the cannabis industry business, but, you know, at the end of the day, it all revolves back to the same, you know, pattern and circle. So
It's a social plant.
right.
Yeah, we're all doing the same thing, you know. I mean, just John and himself, he's been involved for, I don't know, ever, right?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
I mean, you know, like I almost wanted to start interviewing him. You know, he's been around for a long time, and you know, but also too, you know, the industry has a tendency to change. You know, every 5 years. You know, you mentioned you've been in it for 10 years. What's the biggest change from 10 years to today? You know, it's leaps
legal.
and bounds.
Yeah,
You know, it's
yeah,
legal. Yeah.
yeah.
And then I got a question for you. You touched on the terps and the terpenes. Do you think that's just part of the industry, or do you think that's the future?
I think it's a part of the future of the industry. So,
Okay.
I mean, I would say that there are many components of what will make the cannabis industry a better part of our future, as well as societies and just the countries in general. But I mean, terpene profiles from a scientific perspective definitely helps navigate, you know, strain specificity and the way that consumers and patients are analyzing what best to put in their body, given the problems that they're looking to solve.
And you need one for the other. You know, like if you have a high, you know, THC, like if you were to just have pure THC, you probably just get sick and feel like crap, you know?
Yeah.
So they, you know, those are, they activate each other, you know? And I think that, I don't know if this industry is necessarily gonna cure cancer, you know, but it's gonna push and and prod to make people do better, especially companies, because we live in a society where we talk about treatment, right, and no longer cures, you know, and it's that's kind of disheartening, you know. Hopefully, you know, some like a lot of the good of that type of stuff comes out of that, and look forward to it. And I'm going to try my best to be as much part of that as possible.
No, absolutely. And in terms of like the growing operation side of it, are we seeing in terms of, because it all revolves at the end of the day around the plants, but in terms of how we see these vape pens, I mean, we see the popularity rising to the occasion in terms of people liking the pens maybe more than, you know, other alternative ways to you know, ultimately do what they do for their cannabis recreational purposes or medical purposes or whatever it is. Are we seeing any sort of decline in the plant cannabis industry in terms of how the vape pens have, you know, really they've ultimately, you know, rise to the occasion, I think, faster than a lot of people predicted, right?
Well, vape just makes it acceptable, you know.
Clandestine.
The flower is all, you know, by itself. It's more at this point going to start to turn into a novelty. But if you have a vape pen or an oil or candy or something like that, that's far more convenient for you than to sit there and, you know, roast a bowl and smoke it outright. You know.
And how about like we see like the brownies and the cookies, and we see all these other products, you know, on the shelves at the different retail outlets. I mean, how are those doing overall? Are they continuing to do?
Yeah, they're doing really great. Like, we have a mutual friend that's got a super popular chew that's about to come out on the market. You know, it's kind of a mix between a Now and Later and like a Starburst. You know,
about Wes's product.
Yeah, the leaf chews.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. So Wes and Carl are the driving force behind that. But it's, you know, it's a really good product. You know, it's you can have it out. You know, if it's sitting on a table, you know, because like I said, there's still a lot of taboo, you know, feel for it, you know. But the vape pen allows you to conceal it. You know, you can put it right in your side pocket, you know, a couple of puffs, and then also too, you blend in with the rest of the vape holes. You know, like, I mean, when you look at the people that, you know, vape the juice and all that, I mean, it's a big, huge, ginormous cloud. You know, but this is just a quick, you know, couple of puffs, and then you're good for a little bit. And you can see that's where, you know, the sales, you know, the vast majority of the sales is starting to get in more into the oils aspect and all that, you know. So that's why I say that after you harvest, there's so many more steps, so many more cool things that are coming about it. But we're sitting here talking about a few things that I'm looking forward to the future. We're not reinventing the wheel here. We're just adding spokes to it. You know, I mean, this has been around forever.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. No, it's nothing new, but it's definitely shaped up to something, to an empire that a lot of people never would have thought would have, you know, ultimately it would have conquered to those those ultimate measurements. And I think one thing that will get me excited, you know, as a radio host and as a talk show host here, is to be able to, you know, take my show out to, you know, and I think it would be a good conversation for all of us to, you know, I mean, Uncle Ike's, you know, has expressed quite a bit of interest for me to do some stuff with him at one of his locations on either the Central District or in Capitol Hill. Ian's a good friend of mine. And even, you know, even Jared, I think you and I can talk about it, just how I can kind of, you know, for branding purposes, I think it would be a good opportunity, because I think a lot of these stores don't have, you know, live shows, you know, connected to them. And I think with allowing, you know, like myself and my producer, to allow them to either come in here and to be able to, you know, target their, you know, inner niche customer base, and they can see, you know, the guests on our live feeds, and they can hear them, and I think it's a no-brainer. I mean,
I'll give you an example. I have two sets of headphones. I have one set of headphones that I can stream the radio through, you know, and then I got another Bluetooth headphones. And all I do is I just listen to podcasts, the whole variety, whether it's news, entertainment. You know, the vast majority of my content is now through a YouTube channel or some sort of video and all that. Right. So that what you do is whether you can catch it live or not, right? It allows you to come back and you know, review it or, you know, be a part of it. You know, that's where you're really going to get a lot of traction. So when you set up when you get out of the format of the radio, you got to be actually listening into it, and then you got to get to hear all the commercials, and then hear all the music, and then they get back to what you're talking about. You know, but there's only a few, like there's the radio, you know, like the men's room. The only reason why they're successful is because they're you know, really entertaining.
Right.
You know,
that's about the only one that is successful out here. Because I mean, I you know, I've known you for a long time, Brandon, and no one really is listening anymore to the air. Eric, I think maybe she's downstairs. Maybe we should probably go down and get her if I don't want to make her wait.
But I don't listen to their live show. I download all their segments and then listen to it at my leisure. Is what I was getting at.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. So yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely the wave of the future in terms of where people are getting their information, and it's a lot more accessible and easier for people to be able to connect to a show like mine here than do it the old way. I mean, it's not the shiny new car in the showroom anymore for multiple reasons. So I can definitely say that from being attached to a brand and being that close to a brand for 19 years of my life. It's not the thing anymore. And Jared, I mean, obviously you don't have a radio background. You have a background of your own, but I'm sure you can attest and agree with what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
It's all about podcasts these days, and it's definitely the way it's going. I'm hoping. I know I'm running a little bit behind today, but I like busy shows. I like having multiple guests here in the studio. If you're just tuning in right now, Studio 110.live, Dirty Harry back here in the captain's chair, the hot seat. Studio110.live. Follow us on our Instagram at Studio110.live. Got my long-term friend here, John. Got Brandon. Got Jared. I don't think we've met each other, but welcome to the show. You can say a quick hello if you like.
Marty Nelson, just checking in. Yeah.
And you're connected with who?
I came with John today.
Great.
I represent. I've got a farm over in Othello.
Great.
And we grow. It's got 18 licenses out there. I developed the property. I come from a real estate business background.
Here, take my card.
And gladly.
Yeah.
And
this is like a networking a session in itself here today. I mean,
It's a huge thing.
Well, you could buy a ticket, literally, John, to go to like a summit and networking, or you can come on my show here and look what's happening here.
This is unbelievable.
Well, John and Brandon were out at the farm yesterday, and John's been out a whole bunch of times. He's consulted with us since the beginning out there, and Brandon just came out for the first time. I was happy to
Brandon
show
is a
him.
darn good guy, so you're in good hands with Brandon.
So anyway, we're out in Othello. It's a 2.5 hour drive. Love to have you guys out for we could set you up with a great place if you ever wanted to do a broadcast.
I'd love to. I'd love to do a live show out there. It'd be great.
And of course, you're invited to come out anytime to take a look.
Thank you.
But once we get into a lot of vegetation growing, July or August, it's real impressive out
Right.
there. It's a 80-acre farm with 18 licenses, and we developed the property for the farms. We built out all the infrastructure, the fences, put everything in with the irrigation, the electrical needs, built greenhouses, buildings for people to operate, and basically created spaces for people to do business as growers out there.
My buddy John here is showing me live on there. It's called Shrubs.
Oh,
I don't know.
That's what the video is called.
Oh, it's called Shrubs. Okay, so you can. It looks like you can go on YouTube and type in Shrubs, and wow, I'm seeing it here live on the air. Just the aero side of the video in terms of the technology aspect here. It's quite impressive. I mean, it's huge. I mean, it's huge, and you can see how big of a business this really is. I mean, I don't think people really realize, when they go into a retail location and just buy, a vape pen or a brownie or whatever they're buying. I don't think they see the back end of everything that goes on. It's kind of like my show here. There's a whole team of people here. We have engineer and producer and we have a lot of people here on the staff that are working so hard. When I'm not here, they're working to make sure the show is vibrant and we have the right guests in here because I really want to settle for anything less. I mean, I have a high jump bar for that level. What do you think of the studio, John?
I think it's going to be fantastic.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank everybody who supported us the last 50 years.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. And I'm sure you're referring to the studio and your farms. I mean, as a collective effort here, right? So
John's
And
been
all
part
the
of a lot of
people in the
studios.
neighborhood.
Yeah. So you're definitely you're a legend in the game. So there's probably not too many questions that you can't answer.
As far as weed goes, I'm pretty good at it.
You're pretty good at it. How often do you have friends hitting you up that are just kind of asking you for for some product on the side, where they don't want to go into a store and have to pay. It's like, the old days, when we threw events and concerts. Hey, can I get a pass? Can I get a ticket? I mean, Brandon remembers. He used to go with me.
Same old thing.
Yeah.
When I started my company, I used to get paid in cash and weed. That was it.
So your contract there was a 50-50 kind of, split down the middle.
Not always, but
Yeah.
depending on the grower and the project, I might do a little exchange.
Yeah, it's probably not like that anymore, right?
No, not even close, no.
You're not having UPS send you,
No, you can't do that at all.
cannabis now. The UPS driver, FedEx drivers, and sending you cannabis in order for you to pay you for your due diligence and the time that you do at Jared Mirsky's company. My next guest making her way up to the studio is Elena. She is she's a local artist here in the Pacific Northwest, and she's definitely been around for some time. So we're going to transition here, going from the cannabis conversation ultimately here to the music side of the conversation. And we have a couple chairs here if you guys want to sit back until she comes in. I'll keep you guys here, and we'll keep the conversation because I'm sure people would be more entertained to continue to hear about cannabis other than for me to go to a Jay-Z story that I do want to talk about, but I'll save it for tomorrow. I'm all about talking about music news stories that are pressing, but they come out every day, and Cardi B's always in the news, and Migos and Black Beatles, and Jay-Z recently has been coming out now talking about his new tour with his wife Beyonce. And their new, I think their new home is I don't even know how you would describe it. I mean, I've seen pictures of it. I haven't had the opportunity to get near it, but I hear the windows are bulletproof. I hear Jay-Z had the house configured to, it's already gated and it's already got security, armed security around it, but I think probably what makes Jay-Z and Beyonce feel better when they sleep at night is knowing that the windows to the house are bulletproof. And I couldn't even take a stab at it on what it costs to put bulletproof windows in your house. I mean,
Well, that's also, of course you're going to have as much security. I mean, you got a lot of weirdos out there.
but I mean, when you live in like an area like Bel Air, you've got, security and you've got cameras. I mean, they're not going to sleep by themselves at night,
Weirdos get everywhere.
Yeah. But do you think it's a fire hazard, though? Like, do you think it's a fire hazard to, if they're bulletproof and there's a fire in the house? I mean, a lot of people would, what's their first kind of line of defense? To break a window and climb out, right? Well, you're not going to do that at Jay-Z's house. So,
That's a good question. It does become a hazard.
Let's hope he's got plenty of doors, windows that open. Yeah.
Call Will Smith.
Anybody that's ever dealt with the building department, I'm sure that whole place is loaded down with sprinklers and everything else,
Or you just open up the window. That might work. I mean, depending on how it's.
I'm sure. Yeah, maybe. But some people, they hit the panic side of it, and they'll
Just imagine him taking a bat to his window, boom, boom, getting him back in the face.
And I'm sure TMZ would have that first, and I've been talking about it following up that afternoon here at Studio 110.live. So I hope we can continue to develop this growth pattern. I mean, we're probably not all far from downtown Bellevue here, where we broadcast from here. It's a great place to be broadcasted from, because I always call it and refer to it as a joke, but it's actually, when I open the blinds here in my studio, I mean, I could do a live traffic report here and see 405 both directions, and then I can see the weather patterns over here towards the Space Needle. So come summertime, people want to if they're waking up a little bit later when I'm on the air and they want to kind of know what's happening around the horizon around here in the Northwest. I mean, I can kind of be painting my own picture here from a visual standpoint.
How many cranes are on the horizon?
Yeah, I mean, this is we're surrounded by the tech industry here in downtown Bellevue, and there's definitely a lot going on in terms of new growth. I mean, speaking of tech, shout out to my buddy Aaron Lynn. He's my co-host. We do a Tech Tuesdays. So we're going to have the father of the Xbox coming in, I'm hearing, and we have a lot of pretty heavy level tech guys. We had one of the managing guys that started GoDaddy. They do those iconic Super Bowl commercials. He was in with his son 2 days ago. So that was a great interview. And so the show is really evolving into a lot of different growth patterns. And, once again, shout out to my good friend Brendan here. We talk all the time off the air and offline, and he gives me suggestions and tips. And, we're going to be doing a lot of giveaways with, local concerts coming to town. I want to be able to give away tickets and get these artists to come by the show to, promote their show and talk about their shows. And so Brendan is kind of like one of my guys that I always bounce stuff off of, in addition to Erica, my producer, and the staff here at Studio 110.live. And so I'd like to be able to keep this as a revolving door for what's going on, within the cannabis business here, because I feel like it is always evolving. I feel like there's always new things to talk about. So
I think we should just
And
have
you're in
you.
the heart of it.
Yeah, well, I think we should have a show where you just eat an edible and see what happens.
They tried to do that to me several years with a program that I used to talk about at my former station, where the state patrol would come in and they would try to they want an air talent on a primetime show to get drunk and to be able to go on the air. And I always delegated it to someone else to do it. I mean, I've never been one of a large drinker. But I definitely saw. I mean, there was a whole kind of production. I mean, handcuffs went on. You went in the back of the police car. You went down to the King County Jail and got the brown bag lunch and the stale peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And it was a real illustration in terms of it was about as real as it gets. I mean,
He's lucky he got the PB&J.
That's what I was saying. At least you get to go home when you're asked to.
yeah, exactly. So, you don't bring up a bad point. Maybe I'll delegate my producer to do that, and we can put her. I'll put her on that mic right there where John is sitting, and we can see how she is. We can do like the before and after. That's not a bad idea. You know,
That's actually there's a few people that have done that, and it also too gives you, if you can find somebody that doesn't partake as often, so that way you get kind of a real time effect. Because that's one of the biggest things when it comes to edibles is it affects so many people differently. Mm-hmm. And so they, and so that's where you run into a problem. But it doesn't matter how high you get, you're not going to die, even though you feel like you're going to.
Yeah. Well, I definitely won't be trying that then, and I definitely won't be trying it on the air. I can guarantee you that. So good idea, but
nice part is the state only allows you to infuse it up to 10 milligrams. So you'd have to eat a lot in order to really get into that effect. But before that regulation, there was 50 milligrams, 100 milligrams, and so on. And if you weren't accustomed to it, it packed a real heavy punch.
Oh yeah, I got destroyed by an edible from Captain Cosmics way back when. They were a client of ours, and they had this beast mode bar. It was 1,000 milligrams.
Yeah.
Oh god, I took a bite of a corner, and I swear all of the concentrate was in that corner because I woke up the next day feeling sicker than I've ever felt. Yeah, it was bad.
I've heard people, hey, try this, and they don't even ask what was in it. They just pop it, and it was like, wow, that is awesome.
How long was the recovery time there when you've never felt so sick in your life? I mean,
well, from
luckily you weren't.
It was like a 2-day recovery.
Really?
Oh yeah, I was
in bed, can't walk, nothing, just completely.
I was like dry heaving. My face kept turning red.
Yeah.
Like it was like
Paralyzed.
trying to break it was very paralyzed.
See, I don't find anything enjoyable about that. I mean,
there's nothing, and that's why education is so important, and that's why microdosing is so important. That's why minimizing the dosage levels in packaging by pre-packaging them in smaller dose amounts, like 2.5 milligrams to 5 at most, 10 at most, really.
That's where you come from. Is you hear that's all you hear is the horror stories, right? And then that's what you focus on. I mean, it's a society thing. We do it anyway.
Yep.
But then there's the good stuff, but a lot of it gets drowned out. But for the vast majority of people, they have a really great effect. They enjoy it, and it's a way to relax. Like the same people that will knock an edible, are the same people that got a Xanax rolling around in their pocket or in their purse.
Sure.
So but also too, one, if you take too many of them, it's going to kill you, right?
Yep.
And the other one's not. So.
Yep. I have a question here from my producer Erica. This guest right here, Max Slug, is he still coming in today, or has he been rescheduled? He's rescheduled for another day. Okay. So and then my other guest, Elena. I don't know. Maybe she's running late or something like that. But I was told Elena was going to be a guest here on the show today to talk about her new single "Chance" that is debuting May 12th. She's got a big release party coming up called Soul Canvas. It's going to be her party. So a shout out to Elena. If I have to stay on longer today, I will. Normally, I like to stay within the parameters of 1 to 3. The show time here, Pacific Standard Time, 1 to 3. Once again, I'm told that we should be making a large announcement tomorrow at the end of the show, unveiling something at 3 o'clock. So you'll probably definitely want to be tuned in at studio110.live. Follow us on our Instagram at studio110.live. Definitely, that's the recipe for that inner key of success. You definitely don't want to be missing out on that. Any shout outs, Jared, that you want to give to? I'm sure you've got quite a few. So
shout outs to anyone specifically, or
just anybody.
I would say, if you were interested in checking out our work, visit wickandmortar.com,
Yep.
or check us out on Instagram, at wick and mortar. A-N-D. So yeah, Wick and Mortar. That's it.
Have I missed any of the prime time? Have I missed any more of the prime time lunches since I was there last? Or
Nope, not yet. But there's some upcoming primetime CBD infused lunches that I'll definitely be sure to invite you for.
there you go. Yeah, I enjoyed that day and I liked that day, and that was a good day. So shout out to your staff. I had the
Thank you.
opportunity to meet them. I'm sorry I don't remember their names, but you've definitely got a cool office. Next time you see Chad across the hall from you, who's the captain of USC, please tell him I said hello, and let him know that I definitely want to get him up on the show to get the ringleader here of USC up here. I think it would be a good outlet for them, Jared, to get them up here on the show.
And I guess I would like to do a shout out to my team, Mina, Patrick, Thomas, Evelyn, Fung, Derek, and Jay, and gosh, just the rest of the crew. I mean, they just do such a stellar job. I'm super excited to have such an amazing team, and to be honest, I wouldn't be where I'm at today without them.
There you go. And if you were going down to Maui, sipping on a pina colada, you could feel relaxed knowing that the team back in headquarters is fully operational and making you look good, because that's always what I've been about. Is your team is always your front line of defense. They're always going to be the one to pick up those tough phone calls and have to maneuver and navigate through those, and it's never an easy process. Brandon, any shout outs that you want to give to anybody on your team, or any of the neighbors or family members or anybody that you want to say hello to here on the big show?
Well, where do you start? Well, first off, I have a really good team assembled, and it consists of a Roxanne, John, Martin. There's numerous people actually that when you really break it down, that it works.
There are.
But also too, some of the partners. One partner that we deal with and that we work really close with is In-House Genetics. You can find them on Instagram at inhouse6290. Keep up with the progress on that. We're looking to bring that over, crossover. So that's excited for that. But as far as like shout outs, I mean, everybody, that I deal with, knows that I love them and all of that. So
any ways that people can reach out to you on social media? Do you feel comfortable giving that out live on the air in terms of how people can, ask questions to you in terms of the growing side, or you want to keep that off there?
Well, I'm kind of like the A-team.
Okay.
You'll find me when you need me.
There you go. Fair enough.
But I should be remiss. I should give a shout out to my girlfriend, Angela McCarthy.
Yes. Shout out to her. Shout out to your girlfriend, Angela. I've had the opportunity to meet her. Thank you, Angela, for allowing me to go with Brandon backstage, full all access to what was it, Bumbershoot this past. Where did you take me?
She was sick. That's right.
Yes, yeah. You took me to Bumbershoot. Yeah,
that's right.
We were standing on stage and everywhere we needed to be, thanks to Chad from the Showbox. Correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Chad Carrillo.
And I'd like to be able to get Chad. I'd like to be able to get Chad on the show too. So if we can continue to make that happen, to get Chad or one of Chad's members of his team here to talk about upcoming shows, either at Showbox, Soto, or at the Market. I had an opportunity to host one of the shows a couple weeks ago for PNB Rock and Lil Baby down at Showbox Soto. But it's always fun to be up on stage in front of 1,700 people, hosting and getting that crowd just round up.
That Showbox Live and that whole AEG group, they've really transformed the scene in this area. So it's been really cool to see, because I've dealt with Chad in the capacity of the past 10 years, so I've watched all that. I mean, the Showbox at one point was actually, they were talking about demolishing and getting rid of it. And then when he came on the scene, they really flipped that around. So I'll reach out and see if I can get that, because that's a really good, interesting story to hear. I would actually want to hear that story.
Yeah, well, you're more than welcome to come back in when Chad comes in. John, any shout-outs you want to give to anybody?
Yeah, I'd like to give
a
shout out to Harris.
There you go. Repeat that again, because when you took a phone call, so I took the microphone down, so you can say that again.
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to Harris for having us in.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, and it's always good to John to see you. Don't go anywhere. We're gonna get some pictures here when I sign off for the day. So once again, you're gonna definitely want to be back with us tomorrow, but not just tomorrow, every dang day, Monday through Friday, Studio110.live. Thank you to my producer, Erica, who handles so much here behind the scenes, keeps everything in line, from the booking to the social to the ultimately to managing everything here on the team. I appreciate all the hard work that you do here. And thank you to you and to everybody that stopped by today. I appreciate it. Follow us on our Instagram, Studio110.live. We'll be back with you and at you and for you tomorrow. And we got a big announcement. I'm hearing that the LA crew is down in Los Angeles finalizing some contractual agreements for me to make an announcement around 3 o'clock tomorrow with a special guest on the show from what I'm hearing now. So don't miss that. Have a good night, y'all. You're only on the West Coast. You're only 2 hours away from saying goodbye to the boss for the day and closing it up, and 1 day away from kicking off that weekend. Hopefully the weather out here, at least in the Pacific Northwest where the show broadcasts from, will be good this weekend so we can spend some time outdoors. And I wish you all the best. Thank you for being all loyal fans and listeners. And I'll be back with you tomorrow, 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Have a good night, y'all. Good night.